Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Well, hello, Beehive family. I am so excited to be on the Beekeeper Connect with you today. Let's just go ahead and get started. I think there's a hidden and often unspoken expectation that we as leaders will just magically start the new year with like high energy and these really hopeful expectations for the year. But there's this pattern that I'm beginning to see across the amazing Beehive leaders that I get to work with, which is that this isn't always the case. In fact, many of us find ourselves almost dragging across the finish line of the year only to realize that the finish line of 2025 is also the starting line for 2026. So maybe this has been you before, or maybe this is you today. Maybe you're feeling a little bit burned out, thinking about another trip around the sun where, because you're a senior living leader, the unexpected happens every day. And despite your best efforts, your team seems to continue to forget how to take out the trash and be nice to the new girl on the team. Hey, is this any of you today? Have you been there? If this has been you today, or maybe in the last 3 months, will you just wave at the camera? Just wave for me. No fear here. No one's judging you. I see a lot of hands waving right now. This is actually why we meet. This is why we coach. It's to encourage and empower one another so that we can serve our residents and our teams at the highest level. So look around, everyone who was waving, wave your hands again for us one more time. Everyone look at the screen there. Do you see all those hands? I just want you to know that you're not alone. This is normal as leaders that we have these kind of moments. So if this has been you on any level in the last year, I just want to pose an idea to you today that might change how you think about burnout and the power that you carry within yourself to shift out of it so that you can be the leader that you know you're capable of becoming. Now, what I hear most by leaders is that they think burnout happens because the year is hard. How many of you would raise your hands and go, that sounds true? Burnout happens because the year was hard? I'm just going to kind of throw this out there that I don't actually think that's true. I think that burnout happens when you feel like the year is happening to you instead of being led by you. Now, what I'm about to share with you today is what we would call a leader shift. And I want to know if you caught it. Did you catch it? The leadership that I want to share with you today is how you shift from feeling like the year is happening to you instead of the year being led by you. Now, I'm calling this a leadership because we know that if you're brave enough to take the leadership actions of what I'm going to share with you today, it can fundamentally change you. It'll fundamentally impact your team. And ultimately, this will increase the value that you bring to your residents and their families. Now, side note for just a minute. I hope every owner on this call just had their ears perk up, because I want you to catch that when you help your leaders grow, it is actually what fills your beds. I say that because nothing's going to fill your beds more than happy residents and happy families. Now, hear me out for a second. We're in a leadership business that is a relationship business. So when we increase the quality of the care that we give, it increases the volume with which families are going to share about your Beehive home. And when your families are sharing about you to their friends and their neighbors, it's so much easier to fill your beds, right? So let's jump back in for a second here. Here's what we know. The year doesn't wait, right? The year doesn't wait. It shows up fast. Staffing issues, frustrated families, needing to fill beds, budgets, team drama, other people's emergencies constantly becoming your responsibility. So here's what I want you to know. If you don't decide who you're going to be as a leader before all of that hits, the role will decide for you. I want to say that one more time. If you don't decide who you're going to be as a leader before all of that hits, the role will decide for you. And that's why today I want to talk about intention. Because intention isn't just a goal, it isn't just a New Year's resolution, it's not just another thing that you're going to add to your already overflowing plate. Intention is a choice of posture. It's the decision that you make in advance about how you're going to lead when the pressure begins to show up. Now, the first place where I really experienced this in my leadership life was as a young teacher. My first job was in a school with students who'd been kicked out of all the other schools. Think of the toughest kids in your school growing up, then multiply that by 30, and that was my class 7 periods a day. Every day, over 180 students, 100% of which were in total survival mode, would drag themselves into my classroom. My kids were homeless, they were drug addicted or self medicating. A lot of them were in and out of foster care, and almost all of them were willing to fight at the drop of a hat. So then, in the middle of that, throw in to this human soup this really young and inexperienced version of me trying to figure out how in the heck am I supposed to help these kids learn? In fact, things were so wild and chaotic in those days that every day for the first year, I was actually told to F off by some student or someone. And if you can imagine me every day being told to F off in this wild, crazy situation, I would get in my car and I would find myself driving home. And I was feeling so discouraged and burned out because I felt like my year was happening to me. How many of you have been in that type of a situation? You just felt like your year was happening to you. So many things changing. You felt like it was difficult. I realized in that moment that something needed to change. And the power of that year, as difficult as it was that something shifted in me. I realized that if I wanted to see what was if I wanted to see what was going to happen next, to know how I was going to respond to it, I was already too late. If I waited to see what was going to happen and then waited to respond, it was too late. In fact, I already knew the chaos was coming. I just didn't know what version of the chaos it was going to be that day. Sound familiar? It sounded a lot like a beehive home, right? Every day it's like a Rubik's Cube and you fix it and you set it down and you turn around and then you look back and it's all discombobulated again. Is anyone else feeling like this? So I made that year one of the most important decisions of my life. As a matter of fact, I would say this was one of my very first ever self-created leaderships. It was the decision to no longer wait in fear for what was going to happen to me next and stay stuck in survival mode, but rather to take ownership and responsibility for how I was going to respond in advance. That was my leadership. I knew the chaos was coming, but I also knew that I was in charge and fully capable of facing it if I chose to lead with intention instead of reaction. So here's the question that might be naturally following this story in your mind. Aaron, if intentions are what allow me to stop waiting in fear for what's coming next, and if intention is what helps me to move from reactivity to responsibility, what allows me as a leader to sustain that over time? Well, here's what I've learned. You can decide how you're going to lead. You can even choose your intention. You can even lead really well for a good long season, but you can still find yourself exhausted. And it's not because your intention was wrong necessarily, but it's because intention alone isn't actually enough fuel, especially in senior living, because the weight never lifts. You run a 24/7 operation. The needs don't slow down. The responsibilities really never take a break. So the real leadership question becomes, what keeps intention from turning into burnout? And this is where I want to pose that this is where gratitude should enter the conversation. Not as a soft idea, not as a fluffy, just everybody think positive, but actually as a leadership stabilizer. Because gratitude is what keeps your intention grounded when the pressure keeps coming. It's what allows you to lead with strength without slowly draining yourself in the process. And when you understand how gratitude works, not just emotionally, but also neurologically, you realize it's not just a nice add on to leadership, it's actually part of the system that makes intentional leadership sustainable. So here's the piece that most leaders miss. Intention by itself will really burn hot and fast, kind of like a New Year's resolution. Anyone go to the gym for 3 days and now you know you just paid for a gym membership for a year you're never going to use, or is that just me? Right? It burns hot and fast. You can white knuckle your way through a short season with intention alone, but eventually the fuel runs out. See, intention paired with gratitude actually is what creates staying power. Now, this isn't just inspirational language. I know some of you guys are like, all right, here we go, another rah rah from some speaker. But actually, this is more than inspiration because there's science behind why this matters for leaders like you. See, when you lead with intention alone, your brain stays in performance mode, solve it, fix it, protect it, and react to it. Now, that mode is really useful in a crisis, but it can get exhausting over time. But when gratitude is layered into that leadership, this is where you get an extra shift that people don't realize. See, neurologically, gratitude moves your nervous system out of the threat detection mode and it moves you back into regulation, right? So, in fact, your brain can't even function in fear mode and gratitude at the same time. This is so crazy. Your brain can't be in survival mode and gratitude at the same time. You're either going to be fueled by fear, reactivity, the back part of your brain, or you're going to be fueled by gratitude and intention. So when you choose to lead from gratitude, it does a couple of really powerful things that I want you to know about as leaders. First is it lowers your cortisol. Now, cortisol is the stress hormone in your body that keeps you on edge. How many of you felt like, man, I finished last year on edge, right? That's cortisol in your body. Now, cortisol, the stress hormone, it doesn't just keep you on edge, it also makes you more tired. It also keeps your brain in reactivity mode, and it makes it harder to make decisions, okay? But when you lead from gratitude, it lowers that cortisol and it increases dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical in your body. It also increases serotonin, which is what we call the leadership chemical. They call it the leadership chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, because these are the chemicals in your brain that are tied to things like clarity and motivation and connection with others. It literally widens your perspective at the exact moment where stress would try and narrow it down. See, that's the difference between when you're in a place of gratitude versus when you're in a place of reactivity. Wave your hands at me if you're tracking with what I'm saying here. This is really powerful. Gratitude is not a throwaway concept. See, in other words, gratitude gives your intention somewhere solid to stand. And that really matters. It really matters because senior living leadership is not a sprint. I mean, I've been working with leaders. I have hundreds of hours just in Beehive working with senior living leaders, and I've discovered this is not a sprint. This is not even a marathon. It's more like an ultra marathon where you are daily carrying weight that most people never see. I mean, you're doing things, you're taking care of people. You're not just taking care of widgets, you're not producing headphone cases that come down an assembly line. No, you're taking care of people's most cherished loved ones in their lives. And this is what I've come to discover about administrators and owners. You guys don't struggle because you don't care. You often struggle because you care so deeply, but no one's ever taught you how to carry that care on purpose. So January rolls around, and we all say the same things. This year, I'm going to have better boundaries. This year, I'll slow it down. This year is going to be different. And then by February, nothing really changes. Not because you're weak, not because you're unmotivated, but because resolutions tend to focus on outcomes, i.e., what will I accomplish? Where intention focuses on identity. Who am I becoming? And who am I becoming and how will that cause me to show up? And then you add gratitude into here, and gratitude is what protects your identity when the outcomes are messy. Because in senior living, you can do everything right. I mean, I've really noticed this. Some of you are fantastic leaders. You're doing everything right, but it's still a hard day. Just wave your hands at me if that resonates with you. You've had days you do everything right, and it's still a hard day. You can show up with excellence, and you still lose a staff member. You can show up and bring your very best energy and still have a frustrated family. You can show up and bring your best vision and still feel the weight of responsibility pressing in. I just want you to know that if you don't choose your intention in advance, your environment will choose it for you. And if you don't practice gratitude, your brain will default to scanning for what's wrong instead of searching for what's right. And that is a huge deal for us as leaders. And by the way, I just want you to know if you're feeling beat up right now and you're like, dang, I'm the guy who's always scanning for what's wrong. This is not a character flaw, it's biology. It's not a character flaw, it's a biology. Your brain's looking to keep you safe. What gratitude does is it helps you to shift into the part of your brain that's looking strategically for the good. Instead of to have your brain shift into the reactive part of your brain that's not being strategic, it's fully focused on keeping you emotionally, mentally, and physically safe. See, most of us don't wake up planning to lead reactively, right? Bug doesn't wake up laying in bed thinking, gee, I wonder how I could just throw everyone for a loop today, right? She's not doing that. Nobody wakes up and plans to become short, distant, or overwhelmed. Nobody does it. It happens one decision at a time, one interruption at a time, one unprocessed disappointment at a time, until one day you realize you're leading on fumes. And here's the part that really matters. Your team doesn't experience your job description. What do I mean by that? Your team doesn't experience the idealized version of how you're supposed to show up in your role. They don't get Cal Hudson's job description and go, world-class owner who inspires everyone every day and helps the seniors in his home feel loved and believed in. They don't experience that. What they experience is you. They experience your emotional state. They feel your intention and they feel your gratitude. They feel your gratitude in how safe is it to bring problems to you. They feel your gratitude in how clear are the expectations. They feel your intention on how you respond, not just when things go right, but how you respond when things go wrong. They feel your intention when they experience how present you are when the day gets heavy. So this is what I want you to know. Gratitude doesn't mean that you pretend everything's fine. You know, there's a saying that says, fake it till you make it. I don't actually believe in that statement. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in be it till you become it. This is a year to be the kind of people who choose with intention to step into gratitude. Every day, it's a choice. It means that every day you choose to anchor yourself, not just in the la land of everything's fine, but when things are hard, the reason why gratitude can become an anchor is because you can still anchor yourself in what is still true when everything feels heavy. It could sound something like this. Hey guys, let's circle up for a minute. Hey, I know things are feeling really rough right now, but we're going to get through this together. Here's another version of this. Hey guys, let's circle up for a second. Hey, I know today's been a lot, and I don't want to minimize that, but I also want to name something that's still true. Have you guys noticed that even with everything going sideways today, we still showed up for our residents? And I want you to know how much that matters and how grateful I am for you. Hey, wave your hands at me if you feel like if you had a leader do this in a difficult time, you would feel more loyal in that situation to that leader. Would you feel better? In that moment, I'd be like, dang, I want to follow Mike Shawstead. Dang, I love Tracy Long in Missoula. I wish that all the leaders could be like that. See, you might be the kind of person that in that moment when you're getting anchored in gratitude, everyone else is freaking out because they're in fear, but you anchored yourself in gratitude. So when the poo really hits the fan, you're not freaking out with them. You lean in and you go, guys, come here for a sec, come here. Today did not go the way we hoped. And I get why people are frustrated, you guys. We have tension. But I just want us to pause for a second and remember, this team has handled hard things before. And we didn't stop caring then either, did we? Can you guys hear it? I hope you're catching this. Your intention as a leader is felt long before it's ever explained. This is why intention, grounded in gratitude, is the invisible guardian of retention. How many of you need to retain your people? Do you guys know how much it costs to lose your people when you don't lead well? The national average is it costs $2,000 to $5,000 per every employee that you lose, and it costs somewhere between $20,000 to $40,000 to replace a manager level leader. That's a lot of money. If you replace 10 people in this year, you're costing yourself potentially on the low end around $20,000. How many of you know $20,000 at the end of the year would make a difference in your life, right? It would make a big impact. But here's what I want you to know. People don't stay because of policies. They stay because of how leadership feels day after day. So let me ask you something as we get to start wrapping up here. I don't want to ask you what you hope your leadership feels like this year? That's a good question, but that's not the question I want to ask. I also don't want to ask what you intend to say your intention is. But I want to ask even a deeper question. When things get hard this year, and when things have been getting hard historically, what does your team experience from you? Do they experience pressure or do they experience presence? Do they experience urgency or do they experience clarity? Do they experience exhaustion from you or do they experience grounded confidence? Because whatever that answer is, that's what's shaping your culture. Now, this is actually why I love coaching leaders. Because, you guys, there's these moments, real moments, where capable, caring leaders just like you face pressure that would knock anyone sideways. See, and in those moments, it's easy to slip back into reactivity. I literally just got off the phone right before this call with a Beehive leader, and this moment is happening. If you're on here, you know who you are. I'm with you. I want you to know that these moments happen not because there's something wrong with you, but they happen because no one ever slowed down long enough to help you see that you do have a choice in how you show up. I love coaching because I get to walk with leaders in those exact moments. I get to help them make small, intentional shifts that change how they lead, that change how their teams feel, and ultimately the value that they create for the people that they serve. And here's the good news. Even if you didn't get it right the first time, some of you are like, man, I'm blowing it on this. Even if you didn't get it right the first time, the good news is you get to try again. See, intention isn't something that you just declare once in January. It's something you return to every single day, especially when the day goes sideways. And gratitude is the reset button that brings you back. I get to do this. I get to be a part of this team. I get to lead my leaders, right? We're not talking about doing more. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do more. No, I'm talking about leading deliberately. I'm talking about leading with clarity instead of urgency. I'm talking about leading with presence instead of pressure. I'm talking about leading with purpose instead of people pleasing. Because when this year's over, and it's going to go fast, the most important question will be, or won't be, the most important question won't be, did everything go perfectly? The most important question will be, when this year is over, what did you want to be true about the way that you led, even if the year was hard? That's the power of intention. That's the power of the grounding force of gratitude. Now, Beehive, that's all I got for you today. I want you to know that it is an honor to get to work with you leaders from across the country. And I also want you to know you guys inspire the heck out of me. I see leaders every day making shifts just like what I described today, that are growing, that are changing, that are increasing their confidence. And we are honored and proud to serve you guys and help you guys get there. So thank you so much for having me today. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Well, I'm going to stick with this theme of intention and gratitude. You know, for me, when I was really going through that season at that school, I had two things that I did. One is, this is really practical, is I would grab a 3x5 card like this, and I would write my intention down for how I wanted to be experienced as a leader. And I would daily, I didn't write the gratitude part down. I would daily, as I was driving to work, in my mind, I would visualize things I was grateful for. And so as I was going to the school, I'm literally thinking about kids. I'm thinking about kids who had really small breakthroughs, but they were breakthroughs. They were homeless. They were tough kids. They were hurting. So the breakthroughs would be small. But what I found was if I preset my brain by reading that in the car on the way there, I wouldn't even listen to the radio. I got really weird because it was like a war zone over there. I don't want to say your Beehive home's a war zone, but how many of you have people on your team that you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to pull my hair out here, right? You got to preset your brain. And so I would have a card and I would write that down. And what I want you to know is I set my focus every day for at least 2 to 5 minutes. I had a 15-minute drive. So the last 5 minutes coming in, I would read that card and I would look at it so that I could set my brain with intention towards where I want to go. That's the most practical thing that I can tell you that I can do is I did that every day. So it was on the front of my brain. So I would be looking for it.